Hello and welcome to Joy in Our Town. I'm your host, Athena Sorensen, and today we have a very important topic that we are going to be discussing is our youth. If you know anyone who has a young person, if you have a young person in your home that you care about, stay tuned to this program today. You do not want to miss this. It's going to be very insightful and it's going to definitely bless you. We have Daniel Coe. He is the Executive Director of Youth for Christ, and Johanna Gorospe. You say that right?
Yeah.
She is the Ministry Director. Thank you for being here today.
Well, it's awesome to be here.
Thanks for having us.
Now, what is Youth for Christ and what is its mission? How did it get started?
Well, Youth for Christ was started 70 years ago by returning World War II veterans. Billy Graham, who was one of the first full-time employees of YFC, had his hand in it, and basically the heartbeat of Youth for Christ YFC is evangelism. And so really what we do and what we've been doing for 70 years has been working with people who don't know God, who've never been to church, and just helping them to introduce them to who Jesus is and the saving power of his grace.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
The abandoned mission field. Remember Haiti? Who could forget the Malaysian tsunami? How about Japan, Africa, China, Chile, Thailand? There's Invisible Children, Save the Children, and the Doctors Without Borders. What about Hawaii's high school kids? What will we say? Our future, our kids, high school, our abandoned mission field.
It's focused on youth. The core of it is for the young people.
That's correct. Yeah, I mean, really our focus is high school students. So our goal is to be on every high school campus. But in the past, we've worked with junior high students, college. We had a college ministry before. But right now, our focus is high schools.
High school.
Yeah.
And why high school? Why that particular age? Is there a specific reason why you focused on the teenagers?
Well, I mean, if you talk with anybody in the business of youth ministry, and even just in evangelism, you'll know that the younger that you can reach a given demographic, the better chances you'll have of, having them accept Christ, but also helping them to improve their lives. I think, that's a tipping point of, when you get old like me, then it's people are like resistant to change. And I think young people, although, it might not be part of the culture, just introducing them to who Jesus is, that's the time to catch them.
Okay. Now, what kind of things are they struggling with right now at that age? I mean, because, you'd ask anybody, I don't ever want to go back to my teenage years, What are teenagers struggling with that they need help right now?
I guess we have a lot of students who are just misguided. I don't know, I think the world presents them with so many opportunities, and we're there to guide them to take the next steps that are like rooted in the Bible, make choices that for their future that they think that will improve their family, that their church can approve of, that their friends and their family can approve of. So yeah, being guided somewhere. I think a lot of students struggle with loneliness. So what I like about our clubs is we open it up to all students, and we create a safe environment for students to talk about their faith, but also invite people who don't have friends. And we as staff members go in and we make sure to have all students feel included and to feel loved and to feel accepted. And to know the love and acceptance of Jesus and that God created them.
Okay.
Yeah. Does
So
that make
you
sense?
have, you have young people coming in who feel lonely. Maybe they are struggling like body image issues, or do you have people who are on drugs, or you see a lot
Hawaii
of
unfortunately leads the nation in teen suicide. So we have those kind of things. We have people who do self-harm, cutting, those kind of things. So we deal with that. Drug, alcohol use, family, domestic violence, this kind of stuff. Identity issues are huge, especially for, you got a 9th grader, 10th grader, they're trying to figure out where they fit in the world, and it's real difficult. And, and that's the time when your body is changing, so you don't, it's a real difficult time. And so like Johanna said, our staff and volunteers, we just offer a safe place for kids to talk about whatever problem that they may have. Maybe it's grades, maybe it's academic pressure from their parents, which is, popular in Hawaii. And just a safe place for them to talk with their friends, talk with staff, and just help them through their problems.
Okay.
Youth for Christ was there for me when I was hurting and alone. My name is Alyssa. I go to McKinley High School. I transferred from another school, so it was a struggle for me to fit in. I was part of the Youth for Christ club at my old school, so I decided to go to the club at McKinley. I became a leader in the club, and I was asked to share my story at club in front of 60 people. Here's my story. I live with my mom and my 2 older brothers. My brothers were drinking and doing drugs, even heroin. I would often be left alone with my brothers while my mom was at work. I convinced myself that the divorce was my fault. I didn't value my body, and I dated older guys. This was a vicious cycle which spiraled into depression. I broke down at a YFC club meeting, and the advisor talked to me and helped me through this rough patch. My parents are still divorced, my brothers are messed up, but I'm beginning to heal and find myself. I go to midweek church with a friend and discover the power of Jesus to save and heal. Youth for Christ Club was a safe place for me to deal with my pain.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you guys hear stories of bullying?
Yeah.
Yeah, like through their cell phones and online. Are a lot of the
Yeah,
kids
I
going
think
through
when,
that?
Johanna hit it on the head is probably bullying has been around, for a long time. And really what the club creates is a culture and kind of like a family.
Yeah.
So that you get this outcast student who doesn't sit with anybody, doesn't have any friends. Somehow they end up in the club. And then at least the leaders, the student leaders, they have them, and so they begin to build community. And that's really important for us, is to change the school community from something that would tolerate picking on somebody or bullying to a place where, like, if this is happening to you, then at least you have friends to go to.
Yes. So you mentioned the club. So explain what that is, because you're reaching the youth, but some would say, well, how? What do you do? So you have these clubs. What is the club called, and how do you do it? Is it at a school?
Yeah, so right now we're on 16 different high schools.
Okay.
And we host club every week. And it's kind of like, so what we normally do is we play a game with the students, and that just generates a culture between them, friendship between them, and with us. And then we feed the students, and then we give a message of grace or hope or encouragement. Or we have students give the message, or we have just big group discussions where they can talk about their problems and talk about faith or have questions about Christianity. Yeah.
Okay.
So club once a week at 16 different high schools right now.
So does it happen during the day, during class time, or is it after school?
Yeah, majority of our clubs are on campus.
Okay.
We're hosted by a teacher who's an advisor or a counselor for the club.
Okay.
So we come in as guests of the students in their club, the Christian club. Our program is called Campus Life, which is basically the high school
Life.
program. So
Okay.
each club has their own name. You go to one school, it's Hype or it's Core or it's whatever it is at
Cute.
different
Yeah.
schools.
So they get to make up their own.
Yeah, they
Yeah,
make up
yeah,
their own name.
yeah.
But it's that 45-minute or 1-hour time block for lunch. And like Johanna said, we just invite anybody who wants to come. It doesn't matter. You know what I mean? Anyone who will walk through the doors. Of course, we do bribe them with pizza. So that kind of helps.
That'll get anybody in
Yeah.
the door, yeah. That's neat. So what do you do if you have someone who's coming and you know that they're struggling with something? Have you had that where you've had students coming but they won't open up? Maybe they're kind of keeping to themselves. What do you do? How do you break down that wall?
I think the first thing for a kid who's struggling with that is, being able to come to the realization that they have a problem and that they need to come out of self-denial of the problem. But usually what happens is, they'll open up to one of our staff, and we've had problems, with young women who have experienced, incest or domestic violence at home. And those kind of problems, when they're that serious, we work closely with the school administration,
Okay.
the counselor, so that it can be handled appropriately. We're not counselors, but we're here to help the students find the help that they need. So if it's something that's really big and something like that, then we usually direct them to professionals that can take care of that, and that's within the school setting.
The Youth for Christ Club at my school has saved me from hurting myself. I am Lay, a junior at Mililani High School. When I was 3 days old, my parents abandoned me to my grandparents. I felt worthless and unwanted and that there was no reason for living. During intermediate and high school, I started to cut myself secretly. I went to professional counseling but still continued to cut. When I first transferred to Mililani High School this past year, I did not have friends. I would just mind my own business and sleep in class. I was so alone. One day, the YFC club leader and advisor approached me and invited me to club. Gave me a sense of hope and purpose. Club also showed me that God and the people in club really loved me. Since going to club, I have been 4 months clean from cutting, and I am learning more about this God that loves me.
That's really good.
Yeah.
So have you mentioned suicide. Have you guys dealt with students come in there that actually were suicidal and told you about it?
Yeah, a lot of times when you're talking with students, you'll hear the story after the fact, of course.
Okay.
But I mean, it's, every year we'll have a couple of students who open up to one of our, and that's just the ones that open up. There's probably more.
Right.
You know what
They
I
don't
mean?
wanna
And,
say.
so every year we have a story of students who, for whatever reason, maybe their parents got a divorce or they're moving or some other struggle that they're going through, and the kid struggles with suicide. And, like I said, Hawaii is unfortunately the leader in teen suicide. So
Now, why do you think that is? What kind of problems are happening for a person that young to want to take their life?
I think that a lot of this has to do with broken families.
Okay.
In Hawaii, the parents work, everyone's working 2 jobs or more, and so you have basically kids raising kids. I think that's part of the problem, but you also have every other pressure. You have drug use, you have acceptance, you have identity. Everything else is going on, and the quickening pace of information and technology, it puts so much pressure on young people to understand what's going on in life that they can't result. So I think when you boil it down, there's kids who struggle with suicide that get help, but there's a lot of kids who really, they don't have any opportunity or channel to say, like, I'm struggling with this and I don't talk to anybody.
Right.
And so, you get those. We walk on a campus and you'll see this quiet kid.
Yes.
And they're sitting by themselves at lunch. Those are probably the kids, and we just, we're not there to fix everyone. We want to, but we just give them opportunity, and
come in.
those are the ones, when we pray about, like,
Right.
the students that we'll work with every day, we pray that either us, a student leader, or a teacher or advisor will be able to flag those, and just, it's really about building relationships.
Right.
My name is Kainoa. I am a senior at Kaleheo High School. I was picked on for years, and I allowed it to consume me, making me feel depressed about myself and full of hate for everybody, including God. It got so bad that one night I went to my room, fastened a belt around my neck, and kicked a chair out from under me. I began losing my vision and feeling in my limbs until something crazy happened. A rush of incredible warmth came over me, and I heard a soft, gentle voice telling me, "I love you," over and over. Suddenly the belt popped free and I fell onto the floor weeping. I realized God had never forgotten me, and He still had good things planned for me. The next week I found out about Common Ground, a Youth for Christ club at school. There I found kids who love me and love God and shared the same struggles as me, and because of Youth for Christ, my relationship with God is stronger than ever, and most importantly, I've even learned to pray for the bullies.
And just, it's really about building relationships
Right.
with students.
Right.
Yeah.
Because then they'll want to come, hey, come on in, let's go
Yeah.
hang out, and
Everybody has a story, good and bad.
Right.
So it's about finding out the story.
So do you guys have Bible studies with them, or is it, you were mentioning before, someone will talk and speak, is it like a little sermonette, or is it more like a round table discussion thing? What type of stuff do you do?
Well, so every high school is different. It depends on the staff that's on the high school, the teacher, the different church volunteers that we have, and the different student leaders. So every high school is very unique. So we have a club day and we also have a leadership day.
Okay.
And in that leadership day, we can develop a student to teach them how to speak about the
Really?
topic that they want to talk about. Or we have Bible study, or sometimes students want to go out onto campus and pray for other students on campus. So leadership day, I would say, is more in the Bible, or for students who want to do something with their faith.
Right.
So
Okay.
that's where like the leadership development happens.
So do you guys ever do programs where you'll go out of the club and kind of go out onto the campus, and do they do stuff like that, or do you have to kind of confine it to that
No, I
one
think
area?
we're free to do whatever, but really what we're trying to do is empower students.
Okay.
Because that's their Jerusalem. You know,
Yeah,
that's the
yeah.
place where they're supposed to reach their friends. We can only reach, Jesus has got 12 close people around him, and we have, a few, 10 maybe student leaders around us. And what we really try to do, like what Johanna was saying, is to empower them, to inspire them to go and hey, you guys know the kids who are open, who are hurting, who have problems, who are interested. It's your guys' responsibility. So we really try to, we work with about 500 students a week.
Wow.
And maybe about 80 to 100 student leaders. And that's where the power of the gospel
Yes.
happens.
Students. They are our future, but less and less of them are followers of Christ. This generation of youth are the least churched we have ever seen, and almost 30% of them identify as atheists. In the United States, there are over 69,000 middle school and high schools. In those schools are over 24 million students between the ages of 11 and 17. Of those students, at least 15 million do not regularly attend church. Campus Life, a ministry of Youth for Christ, has reached out to these kids for over 45 years. We don't wait for students to come to us. We intentionally go into their world in order to initiate new relationships, whether it be on campus, hanging out at the skate park, or rooting for their team on a Friday night. We go where students are. As these relationships form, students enter into the community of campus life. One natural way that happens is through Club. Club is a weekly, high-energy gathering where community is built and God's story is told. We also create opportunities for students to engage in deeper relationships with campus life leaders through shared experiences. We spend time with students to earn the right to be heard, model Christ-like behavior, and be a listening ear. As relationships grow, we connect with students and give them individual attention to ask questions, share doubts, and navigate life. We also provide opportunities for students to gather in small groups where we discuss relevant issues that they face and their spiritual needs. As we do this, we help them connect their story to God's story. Trips are an opportunity to bring students out of their environment. Through unforgettable activities, Christ-sharing relationships, and a clear presentation of the gospel, we see God change lives forever. Throughout this journey, we work together with the local church to help raise up lifelong followers of Jesus. But that is just the beginning. We engage Christian students who are committed to personal growth and influencing the people around them for Christ. These students then join us in the mission of sharing God's story with their friends and raising up lifelong followers of Jesus. Many of them even return to Youth for Christ as volunteer or staff leaders. So, with so many lost students, how do we reach them all? By empowering a relational army of student and adult leaders to engage students in authentic, Christ-sharing relationships, one student at a time.
Now, on your website it says, today's clubs are tomorrow's churches. What does that mean?
That means YFC's been around for 3 generations. And from shorthand calculations, I figure that's, because I haven't been here for 7 years, that's about 10,000 people. And
Wow.
you can walk in almost any church, because I get an opportunity to visit a lot of churches with this job. And you can see in leadership, in youth ministry, in worship,
Right.
and in all kind of ministries, students that have been a part of YFC. When you're up there and you ask the congregation, well, who has been a part of YFC club? And you get 40-year-old, 50-year-old people raising their hands. You get older people. You get mothers walk up and say, my son was in this program, and
That's
it made a
amazing.
big difference in his life and stuff like that. So really what we're trying to do is we're trying to bring the church, small C church,
Right.
to the schools so that kids can become Christians and learn about Jesus, but
Yes.
also so that we can help to grow the bigger church in Hawaii.
Right,
Yeah.
that's true. And get them young, like you said earlier. That's where it starts.
Correct. Yeah.
You say you're old, you're not old.
Yeah.
But when you grow up, it is. You do become more accustomed in your ways, and a lot of people don't want to change,
Yeah.
but when they're young and they're more impressionable, and like you both have said, they're looking, they're searching for something.
Yeah.
You know, and Jesus says, I am the way, the truth, and the life. So you're leading them to Him so then He can take them and grow them into these beautiful trees from a seed.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Now, how have you seen lives changed? Can you give specific examples of anyone particular that you've seen that you met? When
Yeah,
you
you
were
know,
younger?
it's incredible. I've been with YFC for 13 years, and always pray that God gives me one student every year amongst the, you know, every staff works about 5 schools or whatever. Just one student that you can really pour into and impact. And this one kid comes to mind. His name is Dalton, and I first met him at Kailua High School, 9th grade. 10th grade, I'm also at Roosevelt. The kid shows up at Roosevelt, and I'm like, what are you doing here? He said, well, I had problems at home, so now I'm living in town. And then 11th grade and 12th grade, he's back at Kailua High School, and I'm like, well, what are you doing here, Dalton? He said, you know, he said he had problems at his mom's house living with the boyfriend, and so he's back with his auntie and grandparents back in Kailua. And I got to know the story about it. You know, Dalton, the coach, would tell me, he was on the football team, that this kid was very talented, but very violent. He really liked to hurt people. You know, I couldn't figure it out, and took Dalton out. We had burgers and stuff like that, and he was telling me a story that he lived with his father on the mainland, and you know, he brought home a report card that didn't have A's and B's in it. And he said his father took him down into the basement and tied him up and threw water from the toilet on him and
my
beat him and
goodness.
broke his arm. And that's how he came to Hawaii, you know, in 8th grade going into 9th. CPS took him away from his dad, brought him here. So he's in Hawaii living with his mom and her boyfriend. And it turns out the reason, you know, he couldn't live with the boyfriend and the mom is because the boyfriend began to abuse him, to beat him up. And so here's this kid. I mean, it's not a kid. He's a big 200-something pound kid. And, you know, he's suffering all of this and going back, and we're trying to figure it out. And the only outlet for violence is football. And graduates, and he, you know, I didn't know what he's going to do. I knew he was going to try to go to college. Calls me up after graduation and says, Dad, I need a place to stay. And I was like, I don't know if I want this big guy at my house. I have young kids and stuff like that. But he said this when he left. He said, Dan, he said, you know what made a difference in my life? And he said, and I said, what was that? He said, that fact that you were there every week and I could count on it. You know, and so at times I was like, I think this kid hates me. You know what I mean? But it made a huge impact on him. You know, and so it was great to see him go on to junior college and play football and stuff like that. But just being there and being something positive in his life rather than whatever he's experienced from his father and the mom's boyfriend. So, I mean,
Kept him going.
yeah, it's powerful, you know, that the way God works.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's a wonderful story. So that's just proof right there. That's just one story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How literally a life was changed.
Right,
And
yeah.
you don't even know what he's going to go on to become.
Right.
That's powerful. Did you have a story you wanted to share?
I did. I'm going to choose something less dramatic than something a little bit more simple. So at Campbell High School, there was one student. He came in like he didn't know what was going on. He had his backpack on and his hood, and he'd sit at the corner by himself, and he was coming for a couple of weeks. So I asked my student leaders, do you guys know who he is? Like, who is that guy? And they said, oh, his name is Ronald. No one really talks to him. So he was kind of like a loner, super shy. Every time I'd look at him, he'd put his head like further into his hood. So me and the other staff member, we kept making an effort just to talk to him.
Right.
And slowly throughout the years, he would, I could see him starting to change. Like, he didn't have a hood anymore, and he'd look around the classroom, and then he'd start playing the games, and he'd start talking to people.
Really?
Yeah, and by his senior year, he was almost a life of club.
Really?
Yeah, and so I think the love of God and us showing the love of God through our actions and talking to him all the time had really opened him up. And last day before graduation, he said he wanted to become a pastor.
Oh my
Yeah.
goodness.
So this kid
Praise
who
the Lord.
didn't want to talk to anybody, nobody talked to him. He wanted to, I don't know, preach about God and interact with all these people when you're a
Yes.
pastor, right?
Yes.
So I thought that was really cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Praise the Lord for that. So on that note, what makes your ministry different than another type of youth ministry? Why? What makes it different?
For a number of years, I was a youth pastor at a local church, and it was always dragging kids to church and events, right? The senior
Pulling
pastor would be
them
like, how many kids came? How many kids are coming?
Right.
We go to where kids are at. We go into their place, their space. And so it's a big difference, you know, rather than trying to draw kids with,
Yes.
you know, giving them all these free things. We're going into their, you know, their community, their space, and trying to help them, empower them to
Right,
reach
where
their
they are.
friends. Yeah, so that's
Yeah.
really like the difference between, not that we're not any better than
Right,
any other
right.
ministry, but we just want to place ourselves in that position and say we're here to be used by God, and whatever way you're going to use us, Lord, we're just here. Because it's actually
Right.
ridiculous if you think about it, the fact that we have the opportunity, this incredible open door to minister on public high school campuses.
Right. I mean,
Yeah.
that's amazing.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Have you had any opposition or any challenges that either one of you have faced by doing this? Have you had any rough times during this? I mean, you said 13 years.
Just from cautious administrators, which is a good thing. You know, I think it's good that the administration is cautious about who's coming in. Do you guys have security, you know, background checks? Are you guys following our procedures, that kind of thing. So I think that's really important. And only problems that we've had is from principals who wanted to be cautious so that they didn't put themselves in a situation where they thought that they were going to get in trouble with parents. So
Right,
yeah, only
okay.
things that have been good, beneficial for all of us, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
People praying for us is probably one of the most powerful things. You know, it's probably why we are what we are today. You know, why we're on high school campus, because people are praying for their kids, their grandkids, and all of that.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, if someone's interested in volunteering, can they get in touch with you? What type of things do you need? Or do you need volunteers?
So yeah, if there are churches out there who want to get involved, they can just contact us and
Okay.
help us that way, or like helping us provide food for the students.
Right, yeah,
Yeah.
because they eat a lot.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you so much for bringing joy to our town,
Oh, thank
joy
you.
to our young people, and continue on. And you're definitely in all of our prayers. Thank you so much.